Hey guys, before we get started on this episode, just wanted to remind you that the Golden State with Mates Patreon is now live with up to 5 bonus podcast episodes every week, along with a few in-depth written articles covering the Warriors and the NBA. After giving away a brand new Nike Stephen Curry jersey earlier in the month, I'm now giving away a brand new copy of NBA 2K26 in the month of November on your choice of platform for the winner that will be drawn among Best Mate members. If you haven't checked it out already, I'll leave a link in the description. It'd be great if you could check it out. Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a 134-117 victory over the Utah Jazz at Chase Center on Monday night. I'll go for 20-25 minutes here, and then I'll have to finish it up because I've got to be somewhere. But a reasonably positive result, I suppose. I'm not sure how much I want to take from it, given the Jazz were on the second night of a back-to-back, having had a fairly hard-fought game against the Lakers the night before, where they could have actually won that game. But yeah, following the first quarter, you thought, geez, we could be in some trouble here. The defense was very, very sloppy. Utah got out to a pretty hot start, 9-point lead after the first quarter. Steve Kerr calls a timeout with a couple of minutes to go and absolutely eviscerates his team for some horrible defensive communication that led to a Keyonte George open wing three, which must be said at that point, Keyonte George was 3 of 3 from beyond the arc, and he was the one guy you didn't want to leave open, and yet he was the one that was left wide open. I think looking at the replay of that, hand up Pods, please take responsibility on that one because that was deplorable, it must be said. But from then on, after that opening period, the Warriors outscore the Jazz 41-20 in the second quarter and take control basically from then on. And it was nice for them to be able to find some kind of offensive momentum and groove based on what we've seen over recent games, where they're now ranked 23rd in offensive rating, or at least before this game. So for them to be able to find some level of offensive momentum was nice to see. And I think Buddy Hield probably typified that more than any other, with him going for a season high 20 points on 8 of 13 shooting. I think it was 4 of 8 from 3-point range, added 5 rebounds and 4 assists as well. So Buddy Hield, who's been, must be said, a huge frustration for Warrior fans, someone who has been growing as a potential trade candidate come mid-season with him and his $9.2 million salary. Just quieted the noise a little bit on that one, at least for the moment now. I think Buddy's got a fair bit of work to do for that to be completely evaporated, and I think there's still upgrades that the Warriors could make there, particularly if they get DeAnthony Melton and Seth Curry, or if they get DeAnthony Melton back and sign Seth Curry at some point, then I still think that Buddy Hield could be in some trouble, but it was still nice for him to bounce back to form a little bit with this kind of performance. And it also goes to show you, and I think it's a worry, but it's actually reality, that this team needs Buddy Hield. This team needs a guy off the bench who can go and get you 15 to 20 points in a way that not many other players necessarily can on this bench unit. And the Warriors just look so much better offensively when Buddy Hield's up and running. And when Buddy Hield is a barometer for your team, I think that's a bit of a problem. You don't necessarily want Buddy Hield to be the barometer of your team. You don't want to be relying on him to have big performances in order to win, but the team does look a lot better when he's up and running. And we saw, I mean, the man had 33 points in the Game 7 of a first-round series against the Rockets, who the Warriors will see on Wednesday. So this guy is pretty important, okay, to the team. And I think most of the time we look at it and think that he shouldn't be getting as many minutes as he does. But I think Steve probably understands that, hey, I'm going to get the good and bad with this guy. I need to kind of run through the bad stuff and basically battle that head on to get to the good stuff. And a performance like this was certainly the good. There's still a couple of really dumb turnovers from Buddy, like the one where he tried to fling a kind of over-the-head pass cross-court and it just got intercepted. Like, there's still some dumb plays in there that you're gonna see, but a good performance from him. And probably the biggest takeaway, I suppose, from this game In terms of other things, we saw a different starting lineup again with obviously Draymond out with for this game with a mid-foot sprain. We've got Horford now out for 3 games at least, or this and another 2 at least, with sciatic irritation, which, I mean, we saw LeBron miss over 10 games to start the season with a similar thing. So who knows how long we're going to see Al Horford on the sidelines for, potentially a bit longer than this 3-game period. And obviously, Kuminga is still out, and that's just a completely bizarre situation that who knows what's going to happen there. So, with those 3 obviously out, we saw Steph and Jimmy and Moody starting, but we saw Gary Payton II into a starting role. This guy wasn't too long ago, we saw him get a DMP, and this kind of is the problematic aspect to the Warrior rotation to some degree when a guy can be going from essentially out of the rotation before Kuminga's injury and certainly toward the edge of the rotation to now a legitimate starting role. I suppose he took over Will Richards' spot there and then post into the starting lineup, which I think with Green and Horford on the sidelines, that was an obvious move. And I think assuming Draymond will be the first player back of these 3 that are currently on the sidelines, I'm assuming he'll come in for GP2 and it will kind of be Steph, Moody, Jimmy, Dre, Post. I think that's the starting lineup I and a lot of fans want to see Steve Kerr go to, and I assume we'll probably see that on Wednesday against the Rockets if Draymond is back for that game, which hopefully he is. We know KD will be out of that game from a Rockets perspective due to personal reasons. But I think that's the lineup we want to see, right, with Steph, Moody, Jimmy, Dre, and Post. And I don't know, Post's performance in this game was, I mean, he didn't shoot the ball well again, and his shooting's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit here over recent games. He was only 1 of 5 again in this game. But I thought he had an impact, and he is the plus-minus king. Quinten Post is the absolute plus-minus king of the Warriors. I think after this game, I'm fairly confident saying he now leads the Warriors in plus-minus on the entire season, overtaking Draymond. He was a plus 27 in this game. He had 9 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, which is a career high. His career high going into this game was 3 assists. He had 5 in this game. Empire asks, can the Warriors trade for Sabonis and Herb Jones? They can't trade for both, not without giving up one of Jimmy or Draymond. The Sabonis thing, I just want no part of Sabonis whatsoever because it would take Kuminga, Moody, and Buddy Hield and Pods as well. I'm just trying to aggregate salaries here. I don't want a part of the DeMontis Sabonis aspect of this whatsoever. And then Herb Jones is in that kind of middling contract range where you would probably have to give up Moody. And I've said it before on a live stream. I don't think going from Moody to Herb Jones is necessarily an upgrade as such. I don't know. It might be in some people's opinion. It's probably an upgrade defensively, and would the Warriors do that because their defense needs to be elite, and it just hasn't been over the course of this season so far, at least consistently. So would they do that? Maybe, but I don't think it's enough of an upgrade to me to be totally worth it. Back to what I was saying though with Post, I thought his defense again in this game was excellent. Must be said. I think he's not only using his size, but there's some stuff where he's actually holding up reasonably well on the perimeter, which is a great sign and a kind of surprising sign. I think the first step was, okay, can this guy be some kind of presence at the rim in terms of using his 7-foot size to alter shots and whatever else. But we're not only seeing that, we're actually seeing a level to him of being able to go out in the perimeter and actually move his feet a little bit. I just love the one. There was one in the fourth quarter there where Keontae George, who was Utah's best player in this game, what did Keontae George end up with? 28 points, 4 of 8 shooting from deep, 10 of 17 from the floor overall, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, couple of steals. Keontae George, huge game, +1 in a game his team lost by 17. And he got the ISO on Post, and it was like, okay, this is probably not going to end well for the Warriors. But I thought Post did a really good job of kind of baiting him into a step-back 3 that was a pretty tough shot, and he contested it pretty well and just did kind of what you have to do in that position and forced a pretty bad miss from Keontae George. So just some of Post's defense I thought in this game was excellent. I'd like to go back and see what Utah players shot against him as the primary defender in this game because it just felt like every time they went at him, it wasn't overly successful. So his defense, if that can stand up, then it feels like he should be a legitimate starter on this team. And I know Chandler Parsons had the kind of comment about post playing time in regard to Kuminga's on run it back earlier in the day, which was kind of bizarre to me because Kuminga, if you take out the injury affected game, was averaging nearly double the minutes of Post before this game. Doesn't make any sense to bring up Quinten Post in the conversation with Jonathan Kuminga's minutes, but whatever, two completely different positions as well. I don't know, but I think Post does deserve more minutes and does probably deserve a starting role if he's going to play like this. He's going to have. I'm not actually too concerned about the shooting numbers, if I'm being honest. Like 1 of 5, I don't really care. Like if he can play defense like he did, if he can rebound a little bit, if he can move the ball like he did, like he's going to be respected from the 3-point line. He made 1 of 5 in this game. And there were a couple of times where he was run off the 3-point line. It was a kind of show and go. Like the play, he had a couple of beautiful passes. Like he had a play where Markkanen closed out and he drove by him and then kicked it out to a wide open Moody 3. And then he had one where he was kind of ducking back towards the free throw line and Steph cut. And everyone will look at the Steph finish because he just beautifully, just calmly laid it up off the glass over Nurkic. Like it was just such a beautiful finish. But I was kind of like, hang on, that was an unbelievable pass from Post to kind of thread the needle and find Steph in the absolute perfect spot. So if he can defend like this, if he can pass like this, if he can get a couple of like dunks where it's not just like he had a couple of nice cuts to the rim where he got easy dunks where it's like, well, if you're doing a little bit more than just hanging beyond the 3-point line, that'd be nice. And we saw that in this game. So I thought he was good. And GP2, I don't love it. I don't want him starting moving forward. Fortunately, I don't think that will be the case. I think once the Warriors face the Rockets on Wednesday, we'll probably see Draymond back in for him. But it must be said, Payton played fairly well in this game. He also had a career high in assists with 9.6 rebounds, 8 assists. So the Warriors got production kind of across the floor. We haven't even spoken about Steph and Jimmy. They kind of look like they do. Steph had 31, 12 of 24, 6 of 17 from deep. Jimmy, very efficient, 18 on 8 of 11 shooting, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Did have both kind of look like a hand injury, then it turned into a leg injury early in the fourth quarter, which is maybe a minor concern, but fingers crossed they didn't bring him back simply because it was a blowout and they didn't need to. Moody had a horror start, missed his first 5 shots, and then one of the shots he didn't take was just a wide open layup under the rim, which he just did not go up with. Like he probably could have almost dunked it, let alone laid it in. And kicked it back out. And at that point, because Utah, that was, I think, during Utah's 11-0 start to the game, was like, man, this is not good. This is not pretty whatsoever. And I'm glad they were able to turn that around. Moody finished with 15 points. Still only shot 6 of 17 and 3 of 12, 6 rebounds. He was a plus 20, so I thought he was okay. The shooting numbers obviously weren't great. Pods is the other interesting one to me. He got brought back into the game with like 5 minutes to go. So he ends up playing 17 minutes and 47 seconds, which is low for Brandin Podziemski. He'd played 12 minutes and 40 seconds before the last 5 minutes of the game, where it was essentially over by that point. He got iced out of this, and I feel like some of it was to punish him for that mistake in the first quarter. He if you look back at that play where George was left wide open on the wing, Pods is just floating around the middle of the floor. Like, what are you doing? Like, she wasn't even doing anything. I'm not sure what was going on there. And Steve calls a timeout, immediately begins yelling, one can only assume at Pods. And it's almost like Steve made a statement there and said, we cannot have that. If you're going to make that drastic of a mistake, like some mistakes you can live by because you're trying to do the right thing, right? If you try and force a pass in somewhere where it doesn't quite come off or whatever, like, okay, some mistakes you can live by. That kind of thing was like inexcusable and unforgivable. And feels like Steve kind of made a statement and said, all right, I'm just going to sit you. I'm going to sit you the rest of this game, 12 minutes and 40 seconds up until the last 5 minutes. So he plays 17:47, which looks a little bit better than what it actually was, in my opinion, because he essentially, like, look, he played 5 minutes less than Buddy Hield in this game. He played 4 minutes less than Will Richard. He played less than Trace Jackson Davis. He played less than Gary Payton II. Like, he really got pushed out of the rotation in this game. Now, I don't think that's going to be a consistent thing going forward. I think it was Steve Kerr saying, man, like, the fans might see you as my favorite as the head coach, but I ain't got no favorites. If you're going to make a mistake like that, I ain't going to play you. And it just felt like a statement to me. More comments here from you guys. Berserk Monk says, looks so much better on the boards when we actually play 48 minutes of center play. I agree with that. Then next says, this was an easy 30 for Steph. Yeah, it was. It was very comfortable. It felt like he didn't have to overexert himself too much. He did take 24 shots, it must be said, but it didn't feel like he had to work overly hard for it. And it didn't feel like there was a vintage Steph Curry run, like 10 points in 2 minutes kind of thing. It just felt like he was consistently good across the course of the game. And he started off slow. I think the second half of his was much better than the first, but it just felt like an easy 30 for Steph, as you say. Do you think Dre needs to come off the bench? I know it's the Jazz, but I feel like it's time to switch it up. No, I wouldn't be going that far just yet. I think he will come back in for GP2 rather quickly and efficiently, I would have thought. Now, if Kuminga was fit and healthy, like if that was Kuminga in Payton's spot and he played well, then I could make the argument. But I don't think anyone's making the argument that GP2 or Will Richards should, or any of these guys should be starting over Draymond. I just think there's zero real reason for Kerr not to play 48 minutes of center play between Post and TJD. What I will say is I don't think there's any real reason for Kerr not to play 48 minutes of center play between Post, Horford, and TJD. I think when Draymond comes back, there will still be the small ball minutes where he goes away. For like, is Trace going to play 20 minutes every game while Horford's out? No, I think if Draymond's back, that might reduce to like 14, 15 maybe, and maybe Draymond gets 5 or 6 minutes as a small ball 5. I think that will happen, depending on the matchup, obviously. But I think that once Horford's back, I've said all along, I don't think there's any reason for Draymond to be a small ball 5, and particularly starting. Like, the biggest issue to me is like the Green Post combination is actually like numbers wise absolutely elite, like fantastic. And yet I don't know why they don't start together, because the numbers back it up and prove that they're actually really effective. It's weird. Robbie says we still have time till JK can be traded, but right now I think we can do JK, Moody, Buddy, and TJD for Sabonis and Keon Ellis. Money works perfectly. I think it's exactly what we need. Okay, so who is starting in that situation? It's Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, Sabonis, and Melton. Melton when he's fit, I guess, or Pods, or Will Richard, or I don't know. I don't think. Also, I'm not sure you can do a 4-for-1 trade like that when the Warriors. Sorry, it's 4-for-2. You bring back Keon Ellis. Maybe Keon Ellis even starts. Jeepers. That probably would actually happen. Can you do a 4-for-2 trade like that? I suppose if they're signing, maybe you could do it. I'm just working out because you'd have to sign another player after that, at least one, to get to your 14 players on the roster. And do they have enough room under the second apron to do that? Well, this is the exact reason why they're waiting on signing Seth Curry rather than signing him straight away, because of something like that where it's like after the deadline, we need to sign another guy. Perhaps that's the case. I suppose you could do what they did last season with the Butler situation, where they like signed Kevin Knox to a couple of 10 days and then eventually signed him at like the last possible moment they could. So I just don't like Sabonis because, as was in that report from Jake Fisher on Sunday, he doesn't space the floor and he's just a flat-out defensive liability. Okay? So I just think he's not bringing defense. He's bringing some rebounding. I'll give him that. He could be an offensive hub. I'll give him that. But how does the spacing work between him, Draymond, and Jimmy? I just don't think that works well at all. And he's also not a good defender. So question marks all around. And I just don't think it's worth trading those players. And probably more importantly, I think, more so like if that was the trade package, like I don't love giving up Moody. Okay, I don't love giving up Moody. The bigger issue I have is just paying Sabonis like $45 million next season. Like, I think he's got, is it like 90, 95 million over the next 2 years? I don't love that. Will says, will they ever trade away Draymond, assuming some teams want him? I've spoken about it as a potential option previously. I don't think that will happen. I think it should be explored, but this defense still relies on him. If you're going to trade him, you need to get a very good defender back, because otherwise the defense is just going to go to absolute crap. Robbie says Keon Ellis is slightly more consistent from three and has more ball handling, and we need the size and rebounding from Sabonis. I can see the argument for it. I can see it, but like, yeah, I'm not. The spacing concerns to me are just too significant. Berserk Monk says, I would rather the Dubs go for Zubac over Sabonis. Sabonis is just super underwhelming. I would prefer Zubac as well, simply because of the contracts. Like, you're getting Zubac for over half the price from a contract standpoint. So, yes, I would prefer Zubac, even though the same kind of elements exist. Zubac is a better defender than Sabonis. Sabonis is a more skilled offensive player, but Zubac is just, like, he's a far more valuable player on his contract than Sabonis is. Empire says Warriors need to completely rebuild or rebuild the bench. It's a little bit negative after a 17-point win, albeit only against the Jazz, I suppose. Van Decker says, I just feel like with Dre, we make him handle the ball too much when we shouldn't. Even when we had Clay and KD, he still had the ball like a lot. We kind of need to, otherwise he's just a complete offensive liability. Like, his playmaking has to be there, otherwise you're essentially playing 5-on-4 on offense, so, or 4-on-5. So he needs the ball in his hands. And the thing with him is he needs to find a balance, because some of the turnover numbers with him recently have been horrifically bad. And like, if he's not shooting the ball well and he's turning the ball over, that's a real problem. Yeah, Berserk Monk just answered basically the same question. It's because if Kerr doesn't utilize Dre as a hub, he's basically just going to sit in the corner. Lol. Yeah, correct. And he can make an odd three every now and again, but teams aren't going to defend him. So, yeah. If you've got any more comments, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to finish it up here again. I've got to go and be somewhere. But look, I'm not doing cartwheels over it. I'm not out on the beers celebrating tonight a win over the Utah Jazz. But they have kind of been frisky a little bit so far this season. So it's not the worst. It's not the worst possible win you could have, I suppose. There's certainly worse teams in the league than the Jazz, but this is obviously a result that the Warriors would have expected, given particularly the fact that Utah are on the second night of a back-to-back. Good to see Buddy Hield find some rhythm. Let's hope he can channel that in a Game 7 against the Rockets again on Wednesday night. I thought Post and Payton were decent in starting roles. I'm looking forward to seeing what Post can do going forward, because I think he's got more legitimacy as a starter, more so than Gary, obviously. Jimmy and Steph did their thing. Moses kept at it. Pod's a bit of a talking point with him, I think. Again, Steve making a statement on his shorthanded minutes. TJD's finishing around the rim again wasn't great, but he had 5 points, 5 rebounds, and a couple of blocks. Again, having that extra size is helpful. And Will Richard, game high plus 29 in this game. So we'll finish up there. Any more comments we've got here? Athenic says we actually had less turnovers today. I wonder if that's a Draymond. Are you suggesting that's a Draymond thing? Potentially. I also think that Utah defense isn't great. Must be said. A bunch of young guys who don't necessarily know what they're doing defensively necessarily together yet. And also, when you're a young guy like that, you're just trying to make your way in the league, and usually you're kind of prioritizing the offensive side of the floor to do that. Do you think we beat the Rockets? Not on current form. No, I'm not overly optimistic, but we'll wait and see. Berserk Monk says, I'm not looking forward to the Rockets game. Yeah, they get another KD out and they just roll over the Suns fairly comfortably. Robbie says, hopefully Post keeps his defense rolling. Yeah, he's been good. It's going to be a good matchup for him on Wednesday, obviously, with Şengün and Adams and the size there, because we saw in the first round series he got bullied up a little bit against them. KD isn't playing, but the Rockets are big. It'll look way worse if we lose and they don't have KD. And if Draymond has a real foot injury, Şengün is going to cook us. Yeah, we'll wait and see. It's going to be a big game. I'll be back to do another post-game live after that one, guys. So thanks very much for tuning in to this one. I've got to head off. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Golden State with Mates on TikTok and Instagram as well. And go check out the Patreon if you haven't already. I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks again, guys.